Naked Shamanism. Welcome to With Insights Radio. I'm your host, Iggy Garcia. I will take you on a journey across the universe through shamanism, metaphysical, and holistic. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
It's good to be here, everybody. To Iggy Garcia Live, broadcasting here in an undisclosed location in the universe. I'm Iggy Garcia, so I hope that you are able to spend some time here with me for the next, hour or so, and see how it goes. Hopefully, you're able to kind of cruise along with me and just kind of share your feelings, your emotions, and the things that are going on in your mind, things that are going on in your life. Like I said, it's good to be here. And spring is here. We have sprung, and we're ready to plant new things, plant new ideas, and new feelings, new emotions. And that's kind of where we're going. That's kind of where the show is heading tonight. So, like we do every show, we want to give thanks to our ancestors, give thanks to those who came before us. Mami, papi, abuelito Julio, abuelita Delia, abuelito Ignacio, abuelita Cucha, gracias por todo. Gracias por dando la vida a mi mamá, mi papá. Gracias, mamá, papá, por dándome la vida a mí. And, I'm not here if it wasn't for my parents, so I give thanks to them as well. So I light this candle throughout the show, giving thanks to them. All right. So just kind of move the energy, clear the space a little bit, and just kind of give ourselves a nice cleansing, a little bath. Yeah. This is my mixture. This is my mixture sage. This one has white sage, common sage, some lavender in the middle, just clearing the energy. Nice fragrance. Nice fragrance. I like it. All right, everybody. I hope you are doing well. I hope that things are okay in your life. I hope that you're able to navigate the world that has been given to us, and the world that has been presented to us to do what we need to do. And so today, the show is going to be a little bit odd. It's going to kind of jump around a little bit, and that's okay. That's kind of what shows do. They jump around from time to time. But I'd like to take a moment for everybody to just, let's go into a slight little meditation, a slight little, place for you to relax and let go and release all the tension and the feelings you have and the things that you've been holding on to today. So we just take a little deep breath in through our nose. Out through our mouth. In through our nose again. Releasing, letting go. Just let go of everything that you've been holding on to today. Just let it be, let it go. Be grateful. Be grateful for the things that are in our lives. Be grateful for the people that are in our lives. Those that have been in our lives and have left our lives. Giving thanks to them. Giving thanks to the air we breathe. Giving thanks to the cold, the warm, the rain, the wind. Giving thanks to the sky, giving thanks to the sun, the moon, all the things that are part of our being, all the things that are inside of us, outside of us. Let's give thanks. Releasing, letting go. Feeling your body, feeling your arms, your shoulders, relaxing, dropping them, letting them rest. Take a moment to pick a number 1 through 10. This is your escape route, I call it. This is the number that you take. This is the number that you use to bring you right back to center. This moment that you're in. Pick that number. If you want to stay on the journey, I want you to pick a color, any color in the rainbow. Any color that calls to you, any color that you resonate with. That's your protection, that's your shield, that's your armor. Blue. Raising our arms up to the sky. Feeling that cosmic energy above us, all above us, feeling it, harnessing it, connecting with it, tapping into it. Bringing it into our breath. Into our spirit, into our soul, into our hearts. Really pushing out the old things. Out. Feeling that. Feeling our feet on the ground. The floor, wherever you're at. Stomping your feet a little bit. Feeling the ground, feeling your feet. Pull up the energy from the ground. Releasing, letting go. Letting go of that doesn't serve you, that doesn't need to. Feeling your toes, feeling your body. Rubbing your hands together. Palms to the air. Receiving that love, that universal cosmic energy. Putting our hands on our heart. Feeling our heartbeat. Releasing, letting go. Bringing our body back to center. Feeling our shoulders. Feeling our arms. Feeling our feet. Feeling our head. Feeling every part of us. Embracing us, loving ourselves, honoring ourselves, caring for ourselves. We are one with the universe. We are one. We are all connected. We are all in this journey together. Coming back to our seat, coming back to our bed, coming back to the space where we're sitting, and we are returning back. Released, relaxed. Boom, it's good to be here. And we're home. So guys, I hope that felt good, just to have a little breath exercise. Just a slight breath meditation. Just feeling our body, feeling our feelings, our emotions, feeling all the things that are important to us. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that's usually on my mind a little bit, about the separation of genders. I talked about that earlier, how women kind of and men kind of go into their own little groups, their own little categories. They go into their own little spaces and they share. And sometimes it's good to be, it's very good to be in a woman's circle. Now, I'm going to use this because they seem to know how to do this pretty well. Finding their time to regenerate their energy, find that bond, sisterly, energy, that energy that only a feminine energy has. and women seem to have a very good grasp of that to some degree. And then sometimes I get kind of jealous because I see my sisters able to connect, able to, get into those spaces and do the healing work that they do in whatever form or fashion they do it. But then I see men, and I'm not saying men can't do this, but I've not been privy to see that men actually get into these frame of mind schools of sorts and hang out like women do. Maybe I just not. Maybe it's just me. And most of the time when men get together, it's either drinking, partying, or talking, or gawking, or something. Something about being in that energy with men. Men just have this energy that's just kind of if you want to call it, that's a good word for it. But I think a lot of it has to do with leadership. It has to do a lot to do with upbringing, culture, and just different things like that. In Latin culture, you see men, they get together and they hang out. But they're usually drinking, or they're usually partying, or hanging out, or shooting the breeze, like they say, and doing what most Latino men do. Just talking about things and talking about women. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not going to lie to you there. And talk about their significant others a little bit, but not nearly as much as you would think they would. But and men have a different rapport and different type of interaction. Not that they can't be women's group and the feminine energy, but men have a lot of feminine energy that we just, or is very untapped. It's a very untapped source. And for a lot of us, the reason it's untapped is because we've not been taught to express it. We haven't been taught to say it's okay to be a little bit, let your guard down. Not always have to be on guard about things. And find yourself in situations not I think because you're rooster cage of sorts where you're trying to other guy, because I come across vulgar, but that's the thing about men. Men, they I think that we struggle. Men like myself and other men, we struggle sometimes because we don't have that camaraderie, that bond. It's either sports, it's either going to the bar, getting a pizza, hanging out, or going to a church group. Being part of a Rotary Club or whatever, or being in some kind of affiliation or fraternity. And sometimes men just kill it because they want to be dominant within the groups of these things. I haven't really seen, and maybe like I'm telling you, maybe I'm just not in the right circles. I've never really seen where men like get together and just talk about stones, talk about what they want to do, how we can raise the vibration, how we can make things better. Now, granted, yeah, I could start doing that. I can start doing it with my friends, and we can hang out and do that. But it's a process. It's a process of doing, process of being. I'm a person who is very inclusive. I like to bring people into the fold from all groups, from all different parts of not just one-sided. My drum circles that I do, they're very tribal. They're very community-oriented. They're very open to everybody, children, adults, all ages. Regardless if you can play or don't know how to play, it's about creating community. It's about creating that situation where you are able to express yourself in ways you're not able to at work or at home. The drum circle brings energy. It brings vibrance. It brings that we lack. But men really lack the feminine aspect of sharing who they are. And I know there's probably people who do this, but and I have tried it in the past, and I'll be honest with you, I have tried to bring men together into that fold of energetically, and talking about what it means to be a man. Now, it's not always easy because the only examples we have of what a man looks like is our fathers, our grandfathers, the people we admire, the people that we up and revere. our role models sometimes are not the best role models. And I think that's what happens with men, that our role models aren't always necessarily the best role model for us. Granted, my dad's an amazing man, done amazing things, but you know what? He's shit, and he's, that you just wonder if that's really the path you want to feel. Now, I'm talking about. I'm talking about just things that happen to people. They fall into circumstances and stuff. And, if I wouldn't get my dad into a group and things and just hang out and stuff, it would be drinking, it would be hanging out, it would be, you probably wouldn't be able to get him to do that. I could barely get my dad to go to the movies with me, okay? So, let alone that. I think sometimes themselves amongst other men because some perceive that you're either too feminine, so they label you either gay or some other type of, gender classification, and what's wrong with you kind of stuff. There's just a lot of things that play out. From what I've seen, what I've, felt and things that have happened to me over my life. And, men, sometimes we internalize a lot of things. Women believe that they internalize a lot of things too, right? Because traumas are usually just seen by the big. Women are only the victims. But there are a lot of men who are victimized. There's a lot of men who have gone through a lot of, and we all express it completely different. And so here I am, I'm 54 years old, and when I was 13, I was raped by my uncle. And I'm sharing this because it needs to be shared. And it's a story that has to be told, because if we don't tell it, then we might not be able to speak about it. I was victimized, right? But I'm not a victim anymore. I don't hold on to it in the sense of that it owns me. But the feminine aspect of myself is very hurt by it, because it was like something, I let my guard down. I felt, and this is what happens to men when they get abused, when men get hurt. And this is from my own experience. We let our guard down because we want to feel love, we want to feel emotion, we want to be acknowledged, we want to be touched or felt or hugged or whatever. Those feelings get misconstrued. Those feelings related. Those things get in and they get twisted. In my case, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. I was just wanted to be acknowledged. I was a young, 13-year-old kid who just going on 14, who just wanted to feel, loved and appreciated. And then if went too far. The adult has the responsibility to do the right thing. That is where the issue is. The issue is that the adult who abuses a child knows better. Knows better. Now the child is only going by feelings, emotions, and stuff, and sometimes we find ourselves in these situations because we're scared, because we're frightened, because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We want to make sure we're not, let's see, maybe letting somebody down. In my case, I don't even remember how it just happened. Just all happened so fast and so quickly. A rub on the shoulder here, a rub on the shoulder there, and then, someone plants one in your mouth, and then things are happening. And I share this because there's a lot of guys out there who have gone through this and are embarrassed to talk about it. They're embarrassed to share these things because it's embarrassing, and society may look down on you completely different. You may even think of yourself that something's wrong with you. And so what happens? These patterns continue, right? But these patterns also can end, and that's where it has to stop. And then you play out, and you become very angry, and you do things that you regret. You do things that you didn't mean to do, and next thing you know, you're hurting people, beating them up, or yelling, or being defiant. So how did I deal with it? I was angry. I was defiant. I did things, I break things, and, just because I was embarrassed to talk about it. But it came a point where you had to talk about it. There came a point where I told my mom and dad, I said, hey, this is happening, and this has happened, and this is what's happening now. And they look at you, with the most awkward look that you could ever imagine that you would get. I remember when I told my mom and my dad. I looked at my mom and I said, this is what's happening. And she looked at me like I was lying. She looked at me like I was like, what? She's just like shook her head. Oh, she was in denial that, that something like this would happen. And when I told my dad, it was more like you could see in his face that he was very angry and that he wanted to kill somebody kind of look. And, I remember my parents treating me a little weird, a little different. And I think that was more painful to me, to be treated funny because I expressed something that I thought was important to express and share. And so, yeah, it was really a kind of a bittersweet thing. What happened? Nothing happened really, in the sense of that they were embarrassed because they on their watch, this happened. And they're in denial too, and they're shocked and they're hurt and they're feeling emotions and they're going through things. And it kind of warped their relationship too, which is sad, because that wasn't my agenda, that wasn't my point, that wasn't it wasn't what I wanted to happen. And these kind of things affect everybody. This affects everything and everyone, especially the person who has been violated. And then you start becoming angry, you start doing things, you become promiscuous with your sex, and you're doing things you're not supposed to be doing, and you're in situations that you're not supposed to be, you start to do, then you're like, you forget who you kind of are. You forget who you are, and then you're like, who am I in the scheme of all things? What am I? I didn't want to cause problems. And it wasn't about causing problems, it was just me speaking my voice. And sometimes speaking your voice is misinterpreted by others. Other people look at it, and they look at you, and they judge you, and they think that you are lying. They think that you are doing something to destroy or to break up, families or whatever. I just had to share what I had to share. I had enough. I was losing myself in all that as a young kid. It took a lot of years to go through it. I didn't go through the conventional route of going to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything like that. It just wasn't what we did. It just wasn't what was in the plan. You went to the priest, you talked to the priest. Thank goodness nothing happened there, But when I talked to the priest, it was just like, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel comfortable. It didn't feel like I was, because they made me repent, and and they made me pray and confess about what was happening, and I felt really awkward because it was like, why should I ask for forgiveness? I didn't really do anything. But this is just my story. This is just what I'm sharing. Because, and then I find myself in situations, I'm around a lot of women. I find myself in, I have a lot more female friends than male friends. I have male friends, but my male friends are few and far, and they're good male friends. But I'm usually around a lot of women, and a lot of women, they feel the compassion, I feel the compassion, and I just feel more comfortable. I feel more safe. If there was a word that I could use, the word is safe, I guess. I felt safe being around women because I didn't feel like I was going to get hurt by them. And I was usually right. It was never really got hurt by females in that capacity. I've actually been hurt more by male energy, more about perverted male energy than anything. The sad part is, this isn't, I've been molested multiple times. The only time I've ever been raped, was from my uncle. But the molestation, yeah. I've been molested frequently in my youth by men, not necessarily all family members either. And you wonder, what kind of karma, what kind of energy are you bringing on? And now my life's a lot better. I don't have to worry about those things. I always try to talk to my children about what it means to, what sex is and what stuff is, and not to be, if something happens to you or someone's touching you inappropriately, to tell us. We'll handle it the best we can. And as far as I know, nothing like that's ever happened, which is good. And I thank God that I had the courage to speak up. So how can men get along and do things together that doesn't always include just, hey, it's a drink and blah blah blah. I'm like the next guy. I like a beer and a pizza from time to time, yeah. But I also like the sustenance. I'm looking for that sustenance where men can be men, but they can also be very open with their feelings and emotions about what it means to be a man in the world. Not necessarily in these times, because men have always been had to be the provider, had to be, the strong one. It had to be that we had this image that we have to be as men to be a certain way, which is not necessarily true. It's just something that's just been passed down and passed down and passed down, and eventually we evolve into these new phases in our lives. Now, I can't speak necessarily about women because I'm not a woman. Number one, I can only speak from my experiences and my projections and my views of what I see. But it looks like, sometimes women have a very good time when they're in their circles and they're doing their things and they're going through their emotional talk about what it means to be a woman. And so men, I sometimes think, is we don't have any, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? The word I'm looking for is a ritual, something that, a rite of passage in our culture. We don't really have a rite of passage. We don't have this thing that we, that we are able to talk about and share what it means to be a man, to grow into manhood. Womanhood is different. Womanhood, I think, is, our bodies are changing, our physicality is changing. We have quinceañeras in Latin cultures, which you turn 15, representing that you're changing into a woman. And, in men, in Latin culture, we kind of have things like that. But here in the U.S., don't really see a lot of that. I don't see a lot of rite of passage. So the rite of passage is that I would probably say here in this country is getting your driver's license, Wow, you're 15, you're going to be 16, you're going to get your driver's license. That's a big deal in this country. I noticed that. Is that a rite of passage? Probably, it probably is a rite of passage to some degree. 21 is another one. Drinking, when you're able to drink legally, legally, that's just a rite of passage too. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily the best thing for you sometimes, drinking, when you turn to 21, but 21 is a very valid age, is a very sacred age now. 18, you become an adult, right? What happens when you become 18? Some parents kick you out of the house, and some parents will hang on to you, and they want you to stick around, So it really doesn't necessarily mean that that's a rite of passage. I was talking to my son. I said, when you turn 21, for me, that's more a rite of passage into adulthood, because society has created this number about what it means to be an adult. You're no longer a child. When you turn 18, 19, you're not a kid anymore. But we still call these adults kids. They call my son, oh, he's just a kid. No, he's an adult. He's not a kid. A kid is someone who's, 1 through, 17. That's a kid. That's a child. Life experience is different. That's not what I'm talking about. Life experiences. Some people could be an adult and not have life experiences. But in this country, you're not a child anymore. You take on the core responsibility of what it means to be an adult. You kill somebody, you're responsible. You take those consequences. You hurt somebody, you take those consequences. So rite of passages is a big thing that we don't have in this culture, American culture, for men to some degree. And and I've had this conversation with many people, what it means, what would a rite of passage be? And and to some point we don't even know anymore, because we just don't have those traditions. We are so, we're such a melting pot and such a salad mixture, because now melting pot, for some reason it's not the right term anymore. And now we're like a Caesar salad, with a slight of house salad and chef salad, and everybody's really a salad. But You get the point. You know what I'm saying. And then we come from all different backgrounds and cultures, and then sometimes we lose that. We lose that. We lose that. We lose that because it kind of goes away. And then our culture, kind of puts upon us what they think what society thinks we should look like and what we should be like. I have to say, the men of today, probably not too much difference, except for, certain things and certain aspects and stuff. Now, I mean, every day and I'm kind of going here in the United States, so I'm not really going all over the board. But in this country, we're a young country. We're very young, 200 plus, and we are still finding our way. We're still moving. We're still navigating, female rights, the right to vote, black, Hispanics, the right to, just to be yourself, in the late 60s, 70s, the Civil Rights Acts and the Civil Rights Movement, that's new. That's within our generation. That's within my generation when I'm being alive. This is something that we're still growing. We're learning. Now we have systemic racism and stuff that we are moving through. We're moving through the new evolution of how we see ourselves, or how we're redefining ourselves as a country, as people. And it's going to be painful. It's going to be hard. We're going to go through some bumps on the road to get through what we want to find and what we want to evolve into. The question is, are we able to honor and respect each other along the way? Are we able to say, okay, this is not my norm, and I know this is probably your norm, so how do we bring this thing together and encapsulate it, or work with it, or be part of it, bond with it? There's so many of us in this country, so many diversities, that we all see the world so differently. In a lot of countries, there's a certain group of people, and that's the people. There's offshoots of tribals and different things like that, or different caste systems and different things like that. But in our country, we believe that we could be anything. We could believe we could be nothing as much as we can be everything. But here in this country, you can stay poor or be rich, or work to be rich, or work to increase yourself. No one's really holding you back. The only one who really holds yourself back is yourself. Even if it feels like somebody's holding you back, in the true end, no one really can hold you back. Now maybe you can't go to a different country, Peru, India, whatever. They have systems where you can't progress to some degree. The few make it through. I really believe in this country we have a lot of opportunity to do some very powerful and great things. And that's why, for me, it's important to know that the men in this country be heard as much as the women want to be heard. Sometimes I think men find themselves in situations because no one heard them. And maybe they didn't cry loud enough. Maybe they wanted to share, but they didn't share because they were too embarrassed. I'm just here to tell you, men, express your feelings in a much positive and loving way. If you're hurt, you're feeling, tell somebody. Maybe your buddies that you go out drinking with is not the ones you want to talk to, Find a group of people that, that resonates with you. If you don't have it, you may have to create this system of support. Excuse me. You may have to create it. And everything is created in this country. The cool thing about being in America is that you can create just about anything out of nothing. You can take an idea that's already been done and make it better. So there's all kinds of things you can do. Like, for example, I watched the show the other day about these two brothers, and with these little kids. They're little kids. They're probably not even 13, 14. And what they did? They made fancy socks, designer socks, and then someone manufactured them for them, and they're little millionaires because an idea. They made socks, and they gave like $300 and some thousand to charity because of the socks. And so this is the thing, there's really no excuse in this country to not to be able to create or do something. Now, it could be drive, it can be money, you could use any excuse, and I'm sure that there's a million excuses as much as there's a million answers to something. So, men, how do we progress and do things better in this world? How do we look at the world and not have to think that we're shaming people, or people are shaming us, or we're objectifying women, and then women maybe we're misinterpreting your performance of your art or your expression of freedom of expression, us misinterpreting that and taking that and making it vulgar. Because it's a two-way street. Sometimes what we see is also a hormonal reaction to something we see and we notice. Don't think that we don't notice things. Sometimes we just don't say things. And sometimes we don't say things because we don't want to, maybe don't have the right answer of what we saw and what we're experiencing, what we're looking at. When I look, and I know this is going to get weird here in a second. Sports Illustrated's example, they make a swimsuit issue every year, correct? So, yes, it's photography, it's art and stuff, but there are men who will look at that, and they will look at those pictures, and they will look at the things and not be very nice about it. They'll be very vulgar about it. There'll be another group of men who will look at it and say, well, that's very beautiful. That's a very beautiful interpretation. But it's also, it's also part of us, instinctively to feel and be emotionally charged when we see this and react a certain way. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just what it is. We look at the beautiful things that, is in creation, and we admire that. So I'm glad that, women have their groups and the things that they do, because it's also a good example for us to see that, we're able to work through this together. I think when we come together and we find a common ground, we're not always going to agree on everything. We're not always going to go, oh yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, we're going to be this. And so when we move into this area where we're talking about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, and what it means, right now we're trying to change all the verbiage of what it, not even call people women or call them man. But that's where we're at right now. This is how we express, and this is how we talk, and this is how we tell another person what we see in front of us. It doesn't always mean that's how it is, but that's what we see. So we have gone through history. Men have gone through history being dominant, and women, a woman who's dominant sometimes is seen as a threat. We see women sometimes, and it's very threatening sometimes to men, because imagine if a woman who's, let's just make her a millionaire, and her significant other just makes $30,000-$40,000 a year. Now, some men would be triggered by that. Some men would be bothered by that, and some men won't be. But it's all about communication and talking. And sometimes, we look at a man and we look at a woman, and if a woman's very successful, sometimes the man doesn't really know how to engage her, because, damn, she can afford anything. She's a millionaire. I'm just making $30,000 a year. What can I possibly give her except for love and compassion and all the things in my heart, But these are realities. These are realities for some people. Now, I believe that education plays a big part in a lot of things that we do, but I also believe that upbringing plays a big part in what we do, in how we share with the world, and how the world perceives our behavior. Men, sometimes we're looked at, and rightfully so, because sometimes we don't help ourselves, we don't help our cause when we do things. But men are sometimes really stupid. Sometimes we do some really stupid things, and we say some really stupid stuff, and then we try to retract, and we try to come back, and sometimes it's just better stop talking and just take your medicine and move forward and learn from that. But that's just human nature in general. So I encourage men to go out and do the best they can. I figure at some point there will be a common bond between men. I don't think all men get along personally. I think just because you're a man doesn't mean that you're in a man's club. As much as women, I don't think all women get along and there's just this women's club. It's the same way, you find your different things that you align with. And that's kind of how humanity is. We align ourselves with the people who are closely related to our feelings and our emotions about how we see the world. Sometimes we see the world and the world sees us, and sometimes the world doesn't like what it sees about us, and sometimes we don't like what we see about the world. But the world is very powerful. The world is very us. Everything that's in this world is because we helped create it. And your ancestors helped create it. We helped create it, and we're trying to change things now. We're trying to change things in this country where we label it cancel culture, we label it consequence culture, but we're trying to change things that we think don't benefit humanity. Now, the biggest thing we have to be careful is who gets to decide, who gets to say. Everybody, somebody, part of the people, few people. Is it a collective agreement? And that's the things we have to be really careful when we walk and when we talk, when we share, and we do things, and when we want to change things. Yes, there'll be changes in the world. We make changes when we speak and we open our mouths. So my question is to you is, when we see things that bother us and things that we're not in agreement with, what do? Well, sometimes we lash out. Sometimes we get angry. Sometimes we get frustrated. Sometimes we get to the point where we just want to, do whatever it does to knock some sense in somebody's head. But, right now we're going through a very big flux. And earlier today when I talked on my short podcast, I talked about 2012, the Mayan calendar, how they talked about the acceleration of time, the acceleration of knowledge, the acceleration of technology, the acceleration of everything that we're accustomed to has tenfold moved forward. Every month, every year, everything, we are flying through things. We are moving through things. Because that's kind of where we're at. That's kind of what's happening. Now, the funny thing about things is I also was talking to my friend Ronnie today about Neil Armstrong when he landed on the moon. The media changes, manipulates, and moves things. I posted something on my timeline, all right, about this is one giant leap for man, I forget the freaking, you know what I'm saying, but it turns out that Neil Armstrong didn't say that. He just says one giant step for man, a man, not for mankind. That was never part of his thing. Look it up, read it, I wish I would have quoted it properly, but, hey, it is what it is, right? But, it's interesting how we can change. And we were talking about his story. H-I-S, story. Okay, man has controlled and manipulated what is read, who has won the war, who has won the technological battle. I don't know why that's funny, but I'm having fun. In my head, there's things going on, rolling around in there right now. So yeah, and I brought that up because I find how easy sometimes humanity can be manipulated and can be swayed a certain way. So I guess my message today is, let's be careful how we are swayed, what we were reading, what is the information we're taking in, who we're trusting, who, we're letting into our sphere of influence. Listen, when you work with practitioners or you work with shamans or you work with anybody, just make sure there's healthy limits and boundaries between people. That's very important. It's very important. Because lines could be crossed, lines could be misconstrued very quickly. Things can be interpreted completely wrong. So make sure, and I don't know how you're going to do this, you're just going to have to figure it out when you're working with people. This is one of those things that you have to just be able to move. So what's this have to do with history? Well, the history is written by those who are considered the winners. And the winners usually write the story about how it looks. So now we look in our culture right now and hear the United of influx of rewriting of history, changing things. And I tell you, in 200 to 300 years from now, the things that get changed today won't even be remembered the way they should be remembered, because it'll be in a book, but you won't understand. You won't have any association to it. You won't have any feel to it. You won't have any connection to it. It will be one of those things that, just you won't have a point of reference. You won't have a point of reference. It's just what it is. There are a lot of things in history that have been changed and manipulated and canceled out, rewritten. The consequences of those actions change those things. Could you imagine all the things that we don't even know that have been changed, that have been manipulated, that have been completely altered, and only through history and finding old history are we able to know that. I'll give you an example. And this is something that's true. This is something This is something that you've probably read about. The Taliban's a good example. They go into a country, they overrun it, they take it over, they go into a city, and then they destroy all the Buddhas. There was a big article about how the Taliban was destroying all the Buddhas, and how ISIS was going in there and destroying all the Buddhas too, and how they were changing and erasing history of the people that they pretty much, I guess the word is conquer, I guess, right? And they were just erasing that from the history book so it would never be remembered, because their goal was to manifest what they believe in and put it there. So there's a lot of history through war, appropriation, through conquest and stuff that there's history that would never be remembered ever. We won't even know even existed. There's not even a footnote anywhere to even read about it. We can only pursue, and think that what may have been happening. It's just like when the Incas were conquered, for example. They don't have any written history. Their history's not written. It's verbally passed down from generation to generation, and the information is logged through, pottery, through signs and paintings and tying of knots on rope. Unless you know that language, it's forgotten. There's a lot of, it's like English, for example, in all the languages in the world. In 1,000 years, maybe nobody speaks any of these languages anymore, or has any way to interpret it, or any way to know what they're even talking about. Now, the only cool thing about it is technology is available, and technology will be around probably most likely to share that, unless we mess ourselves up and cause a catastrophe. There's these places we call, these fictitious places that I feel are real, like Lemuria and Atlantis. For some people they aren't real. For me, it's very real. Their language is no longer, there's no what they were sharing. It's like when we were able to talk to the animals and we were able to feel the trees, the energy of the trees and the surrounding, and we don't do that anymore. We don't have any clue how to do that, because we don't need it anymore, because we don't think we do. So life is one of those things that's very, very evolving constantly. So the things that we're used to having right now, we may not have anymore. The only people who know about it is us, because we're living in the moment and we're here. But in the near, far future, things will be so different that we probably won't even speak this version of English. It'll probably be some offshoot, hodgepodge of multiple languages all mixed into one. And when they speak it, it's normal to them. And then when they look at our hieroglyphics and stuff and all the things we leave behind, and and all the mounds full of garbage that we leave behind, our indigenous mounds that we call landfills. That's where our history is going to be. They're going to read that. When you bury this stuff for so long, some of the stuff doesn't decompose. Some of this stuff doesn't break down. It doesn't break down because of the lack of air that doesn't get in there. But eventually, the stories that we leave behind, some people will look at them and go, "What's that guy saying? I don't even understand what he's talking about." But I can see that he's very animated. But anyways, I think I got across what I wanted to share today. Just kind of sharing my feelings and emotions and what's on my mind. Men, women, sometimes we have to separate and kind of find our ways within our groups, and then come back, meet in the middle, and work on our thoughts and feelings and emotions together, and then separate, come back, and work and figure it out, work through it. But anyways, I just wanted to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. But I want to share with you that we'll have a drum circle at Schiller Park from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in Columbus, Ohio, this coming Saturday. And if you can make it, I believe that's the 27th, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check here. The 27th is Saturday. Yep. And then tomorrow, from 6 to 7:15, 7:30, we'll be down at Griggs. We'll be doing a meditation. We'll be doing singing bowls and chanting. So if you can join me there, I'll make an event here in a minute and send that out. So that'll be at Griggs down by the dam. Hopefully you can make it. So I hope you were able to understand where I was trying to get to. I don't know if I got there. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But regardless, the attempt was there. So hopefully I will see you guys sometime this weekend, or maybe next week on my show. We try to do a little short podcast, Mind of Iggy, once a day. Just kind of get a feel where I'm at and just what's happening in my life and what's happening in the world. So I just want to say, Matakwi Asin Ho'oponopono. It's good to be here. Iri Sikwi, what is above is below. The things that connect us, bring us together. Namaste. And with that, I want to say aho, and I want to thank everybody for being here with me. Peace and love. Get some rest. Get some sleep. And I will see everybody next time on Iggy Garcia Live at iggygarcia.com, with insightsradio.com. Join me and subscribe on my YouTube. Look for me at Iggy Garcia. It's good to be here. And, we will see you next time, guys. And next week I have Dawn Dancing Otter. She'll be on my show around 7:30. We'll be talking and be sharing. See what's been on her mind, what she's doing. She's a shaman up in Canada. She's a good friend of mine. So we'll be excited to share and see where we are all progressing and how we're moving in this world. So peace and love, guys. Take care. Have a good night. I love everybody. Take it easy. Take care. Don't forget to breathe. Breathe. People, breathe.